morning, everyone. Welcome to lecture 30 of cloud computing. And this is the last lecture for service-oriented architecture. So, in today's class, we will discuss about the workflow in the service-oriented architecture. While you studied the software engineering also, you may heard about the workflow. Or if you go for any business organization, okay, or any company, any enterprises, there is a workflow, right? For each and every project, there is a workflow. Here, each and every module is represented in the form of a pictorial representation. Each component is represented by either a circle or a rectangle, and the flow of the component, the data flow of the component from one component to another component is represented in the form of edges, right? So it will show it will look like our directed acyclic graph, okay, where we are representing each and every circle by a major component, and the dependency of the component is represented by directed edges, right? Where it indicates A is a component, let's say B is a component, A is a component, let's say B is another component. If there is a edge between A to B, it indicates that component A need to complete its work and can provide the data to component B so that B can start its execution. Right? So this is the base of a workflow system. So we'll see with respect to the service-oriented architecture how it is processing. Okay, or with respect to any scientific and engineering applications. Next, we'll discuss about after this class. We'll discuss about task scheduling problem. In the task scheduling problem, I'll tell you how these workflows are used in the task scheduling as well. Right? So, whenever we are talking about a real system, right, that real system consists of multiple interacting services, right? This system may provide various services, like cloud is providing infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, or you say anything or everything is a service, right? So, service, if you see in a narrow term, you can say service may be a simple sensor, right? A simple sensor means you can say only an output data stream, right? It has only one output data stream, or it may be as large as a complete grid. Whenever we are talking about a complete grid, we can say it is a collection of the services with multiple input and multiple output. Okay, but simple sensor case we are expecting a single output. But whenever you go for a big system, number of inputs are also increasing and number of outputs are also increasing, right? Now, whenever we are talking about prototypical complex system, right, we are referring to three things. It may be your grids of service, it may be grids of grids, or it may be grids of cloud. So these grids of service we can say in the form of grids or grids of clouds, right? Means inside a grid, another grid is there, right? Or a group of grids are providing the service, or a set of clouds are providing the services. That's why we are saying grid of grids and grid of clouds, right? Similarly, when you go for the component grids, or we call this is a subgrids, are invoked. Why we are invoking component grids, or why we are calling a particular grid, or why you need a grid? That is because of collaboration, visualization, sensor fusion, computing, and GIS application. Or overall, I always told you that it is a scientific or engineering application, right? So, for collaborating into in a project, if multiple systems are participating, so there you can form a component grid, so that collaboratively you can solve a particular problem, right? So by adding, if you add application specific services, one builds a distributed system. Okay, this distributed system supports the study of, let's say, flood or gas or the, let's say, electrical infrastructure. So these are solved by the help of distributed system. It is not limited to these infrastructure, it may be generalized to any infrastructure. So this concept of grids of services or grids of clouds can be visualized in the form of this diagram. So you can see in the top layer we have various application specific services like flood is a specific application, electricity is another specific application, or gas is another specific applications, right? So it is in the top layer, that is the application layer you can say. And here these applications can be requested, can request the resources to these portals, right? So you can build a collaboration grid, you can build a sensor grid, it might go to GIS grid or visualization grid and compute grid based upon the type of application, right? And irrespective of the applications, you are maintaining a registry, security features can be provided, notification to the admin, notification to the appropriate manager will be provided. Workflow will decide in which order you are going to process the applications, okay? And metadata you are maintaining and messaging between various components. These are the various features are provided by grids of services, right? For any application specific services. Now, come to the workflow, right? Let us discuss the, any problem? Okay. Now let us see the basic workflow. If you go for the basic workflow concept, it is described various programming. It may be programming, maybe your C or C++, Fortran or Java or Python, which are you can also use the traditional programming language or the modern programming languages. Okay, so what these programming languages will do? This programming language makes an interaction between the services. Okay, or it may be programming the web or grid, software coordination, or service orchestration, service process coordination, service conversation, web scripting, application integration, software base. Okay, so workflow describes many things, right? One of the very popular thing I would like to tell you, which is very popular in cloud, that is called a service orchestration. So orchestration means you want to automate this complete process. Like last class we have discussed the discovery, the description, okay, of the services should be automatic. There should not be any human being involved in this process. This process should be completely automatic because we are providing the service for 24/7. An automated process so that service request will be requested by the client. Service request may be requested by the client, and service provider can provide services to the based upon the requirements given by a particular user, right? So if you see here, even if you go for a research point of view, I can say workflow is an active research with different approaches which focuses on your control flow, okay, how the control is flowing from the starting to the ending, right, or the root flow to the leaf node. Another important research in this field is called CBD. Another is also we are depending upon the data flow as well. Not only control flow, we are also dependent on the data flow, right? So this workflow is nothing but a two-level programming model. First one, the basic services are programmed using our traditional languages like C, C++, Fortran, Java, and Python. While workflow describes the coarse-grained programming of services interacting with one another. So coarse-grained means what? I told you earlier also. Fine-grained is a detailed view. Coarse-grained is a overall view, right? So I'll tell you a small example so that the idea is more clear. So this coarse-grained programming of services interacting with one another. So each service is programmed in traditional language while their interaction is described by the workflow, right? Now let us see in this program, I'll tell you the difference between the fine grained and coarse grained. And many people also find a intermediate term that is called as medium grained. So suppose you have a program, okay, you want to execute the program using 100 processors, right, in the fine grained. Sometimes you have a limitation of the processor, so you have at max 25 processors. Sometimes you have very limited number of processors like 2 processors. So you can see here there is a program. So the program is within the main function. In the main function, we are writing the switch case statement. What this switch case statement says here, if you see, switch the processor ID. So how many processors you have? You have 100 processors, and their IDs are in between 1 to 100. So first, what you have to do, whenever you receive a particular workflow, you have to decompose the workflow into 100 parts, because you have 100 processors, if possible, right? So that each and every processor you can assign a small amount of work, right? So what you will do, once you divide these into small chunks, one chunk you will assign to processor, one chunk you will assign the processor 2. Like that, it will continue up to processor 100. Sometimes these processors are also called as your PE, that is processing element, right? So you can see, if the process ID is 1, then what you are doing, it is going to compute element 1. Okay. If it is processing element 2, it is going to execute compute element 2. Process 3 means compute element 3. Like that, we are giving various computing work or computational work to various processes. Okay. So as is a detailed view, what I can say, it is a fine grained, right? But what I told you, whenever you go for this workflow describes the coarse grained programming of services interacting with one another. So see, in the coarse grained, what happened? We have only 2 processors. So what we can do, the processors either 1 or 2. So first processor, we have assigned the computational work 1 to 50. Second processor, we are giving the computational work from 51 to 100. Similarly, you can coin a medium grained programming, right? In which you can say the number of processors, let's say 25 processors are there. So you are dividing 4 works per processor, right? Each and every processor is assigned with 4 works. But while you are assigning, you have to ensure that each and every processor, whatever work you are assigning, let's say here you are assigning 4 work, here you are also assigning 4 work, you have to ensure that the core work, the load of this 4 work is same as the load of this 4 work. So it may happen that the sum of these 4 works, let's say we have to process a storage application. So let's say these 4 works is 1 GB. However, this 4 work is, let's say, 1 KB. Okay. That's why I told you also in some class, round robin is a very good algorithm. In terms of what? In terms of number of works assigned to each and every individual processor. But if you say each and every individual processor is having each and every your computational element or computing work is different, then round robin may not perform well. Just like in this case, we have divided 4 per processor, but if you see the amount of work that processing element is going to do is having a huge difference, right? So now you can see here, if you go for multi-level programming concept, so it is similar or it is familiar for elementary cell programming, where pipes are often used to link executing program. So in operating system also, you have studied various system calls. Like you have studied about the fork system call, you have studied about EXEC system call, or you have studied about wait system call, right? Similarly, you have studied another system call that is called pipe. Okay, why we are using pipe? Pipes are often used to link executing program. It is linking the programs. So there is a pipe between the source and destination, right? So there is a source and there is a destination. So there is a pipe. So what happens? You have to write the something into the pipe so that another person can read from that pipe, right? So if you go for the scripting, like shell script is one of the popular approach to workflow with distributed programming constructs replacing the familiar Unix primitives. So if you go for that, you can see one of the example that TCP channels, or we discussed about the PubSub messaging replaces the concept of pipes. Right? Now we are using TCP channels, or we are using the PubSub messaging. So this figure shows the hierarchical computing, data, and programming abstractions. So what it is saying, you can see there is a method. In also C programming, you know there are methods, right? In the traditional programming, in programming C, C++, Python, and Java. Okay, this methods is invoked by a particular service. Like a program is there, a program having different functions. Similarly, a service may consist of several methods. And multiple services can be represented in the form of workflow and can be executed in the component grids. Similarly, if you go for compute resource grid, it is consists of the clusters, which is a group of computers or group of workstations, group of personal computers, and massively parallel processors. Focus in the cluster, you one system may have multiple CPUs, or you have a large number of CPUs, or nowadays we are using GPU, right? Similarly, if you go for data resource grid, there is a difference between the compute grid and data grid. It is solving your data intensive application, where it is solving the computational intensive applications. I'll tell you this difference later also. Okay, so this data resource grid, where we are pointing in the data. So where we will get the data? Data may be generated from various sensors. Each and every sensor may have one input, one output. Okay, so a group of sensors we call it a sensor nets, right? That is, whatever data the sensor nodes are generated, that need to be processed in the data resource grid. Similarly, if you see here, let's say databases are there, federated databases are there, like the databases that are present in various places. What we want to when you combine these things to have process in the same, process in the data and resource grid. So there also you can process these databases, federated databases. So the storage can be processed in the databases grid. So combined, if you see a set of grid, it may be a component grid, it may be a computational grid, it may be a data grid. What we call it an overlay on a computer grids of grids. Like I told you in some class about multi-cloud. Multi-cloud means you have a number of cloud service provider. They are collaboratively providing the services. So there you can go for grids of clouds, right? Grids of clouds, or sometimes you call it a clouds of clouds, right? Okay. Now, if you go for the concept of workflow, it is not new. Okay, it was first developed by the workflow management collatation, okay, which has existed for almost 20 years and generated standard reference model. So this collatation is giving the standard reference models, documents, and substantial industry of tools and workflow management support products, right? So like each and every process, whatever we are using in the service-oriented architecture, this need to be standardized. Okay, there is a standardization will be there. Then it is very easy for doing for the business process management. And in the business process management, we have seen if you go for any business process management, forget about the cloud computing. They are having various human resources, not the computer resources, right? Let us go for our vegetable market, where the vegetable is coming. This is also a business, right? From the starting, for example, from village to the city, how the vegetables are coming. If you see, in the process of this, the human being is involved, not the computer, right? But what we need, whenever we are going for computational resources, we need to automate this business process. Okay, for automating this business process, what you need some standardization. or you need a reference model, you need a proper guidelines, documents, okay, that need to be followed by each and every that entity that are associated with this business process, right? That's why agreeing documents, information or tasks are passed from one participant to another according to a set of procedural rules. And all the information will not be provided to each and every person. Okay, the information that are required required and intended to a particular person, that only be provided. Other things will not be provided. Okay, so workflow concept evolved from the distributed programming long back. Okay, they are using various systems. Some of the systems is, one system is called as Linda, another is HENCE, another is AVS, another is PORS. So complex cell or POSIX, these all are there in the distributed programming. And one of the things you may have studied in the software engineering also, that is called as PotteryNet. Although there is a colored PotteryNet is also there, PotteryNet can be considered one of the early ideas important for workflow. So you can see I have given a small example here. So to clear the idea of PotteryNet, if you have not studied. In PotteryNet, what happened? Like if you see, let's say you are giving a food order in Swiggy or a food order in, let's say, Zomato. So what happened? An order is arrived to a particular restaurant, right? And an order is in the waiting stage, or they are verifying what are the things you have mentioned in the order, whether that things will be possible or not. Otherwise, they may reject, or they may say that this item is not available. You may go, you may choose another item, something like that. Negotiation between the people can happen, right? The people who is the person who is giving order or the person who is providing that order. Then what happened? Based upon your order, the processing is starting. Okay. Once the processing is completed, what you are doing, you may continue with this one because you may have ordered multiple items, right? So once all the orders are completed, okay, you are in this, you can say this machine shop or this food shop in this case is idle, okay, and waiting for the work. Once the work is there, again it will start in working on that product, okay, or that preparing that vegetable. Once all the items, whatever you have ordered, is cooked and packed, the order is complete. The order is sent for delivery. Right? So this is an example of your, you can say, that is pottery. Okay, so it is used long back in the world. It is used and it is also created as a workflow. Okay. Next, you can see like the chemical informatics and business intelligence areas. Okay, have several workflows. They have also several workflows. Like one of the workflows include info science, another is called as a pipeline pipe. So these are the various workflows, and also you have seen that BUINC platform also. Whatever projects are there, they are also nothing but a workflow. They are also having a workflow, right? Based upon that, they are executing various applications. Now, today we see great emphasis on the lightweight system. Nobody wants to go for a heavyweight system. Everybody wants a lightweight system. Starting from our handheld devices to the subscription, whatever we made, we want everything the lightweight system. So if you see here, interoperability is achieved by ad-hoc transformation. Ad-hoc means temporary transformation. Okay. So I'll tell you a set of, you can say, standard activities which is suggested by OASIS, OMG, and W3C, often with overlapping goals. The goals of these three standards, if you see, they are overlapping each other in the form of a table, where you can say OASIS is Advancing Open Standard for the Information Society. OMG stands for your Object Management Group. W3C, that is World Wide Web Community, right? conservative, right? So you can see many substantial and unfinished standard activities are there. Many standards have started, but these standards are not finalized yet. Okay, means you can say the development of the standard is also going on. Okay, the standard may not be in a complete phase as well, right? So before showing that list, you can see one of the popular standard used, that is called as BPEL standard. So BPEL stands for your Business Process Execution Language Standards. Especially this standard is used in the scientific workflows. Okay, many scientific workflows are there. Like I will tell you these things in the other classes. That is about epigenomics, LIGO, SIPST. Okay, so many standard workflows are there. How they are organized and in what order you are going to execute it, and basically you have to take the structural advantages of the scientific workflows. If you know the structural advantages, then you will know that how many processors will fit to that particular workflow. Although XML is widely used, I told you repeatedly that XML is used in the service-oriented architecture. But the problem is that XML is not well suited to specifying programming constructs. Although you can say XML can express the data structure, but it is possible but not natural to express the loops and conditionals. Okay, you cannot express a loop and conditionals in the XML. So XML may not be a proper okay, that are used in these standards. So what are the standards? You can see BPEL is a standard. WS-CDL, CDL stands for your choreography description language. WSCI, WSCL, WSFL, XLAN, WSCF, WSCTX, WSCF, WSTX. These all are the standards, and their websites are also mentioned in the slide with their date of release. Okay, for the year which in the year which was in which these standards are coined, right? But all the standards are not in the final stage. Okay, like you can see here, WSCAF, it is written status is unfinished. Okay, or some standards are there like WSFL, that is Web Service Flow Language. It is replaced by your Business Process Execution Language, right? Like here you can also see another language, that is WSCDL, which is started from November 2005, but is not in the final stage, like that. Some other standards also you can see, that is WS Coordination, WS Atomic Transaction, WS Business Activity, BPMN, that is Business Process Modeling Notation, Business Process Specification Scheme, Business Transaction Protocol. These are the various standards, right? Now we used two terms in this discussion. One is orchestration, where I told you there is a automation process, right? That automation, everywhere we need automation process, like service discovery, description, dispatching, and scheduling. Everywhere we need automation. Another thing I told you, that is service choreography. So there is a difference between these two terms, orchestration and choreography. You can see in the diagram, it is very clear that in orchestration there is a service controller. Here you can see this is your service controller. This service controller handles all communications. All the communications is handled by the service controller. And each and every communication may have your separate database as well, right? You can assume that this is an application, this is another application, this is another application. The various components that are under a particular service controller. This service controller is dispatching the request to the components based upon the information received from the client, right? But whenever you go for choreography, you can see we are replacing this service controller by your event program. Okay, the service controller is now under your event broker. Okay, so broker is generally present in the middleware, right? So what it is doing? It is doing the mapping process. Whatever request it is received from the user side, it is assigning to a proper component, or it is deploying to a particular resources, right? So in this way, these two are different from each other. So if you go for workflow architecture and specification, most workflows have two key components. One is corresponding to your language, another is your runtime environment, or you can say runtime components of any programming environment. Okay, so these components, if you see, we call these components the workflow specification and workflow execution engine. Scheduling plays an important role. If you go for workflow specification, in workflow specification, you can see there is a scripting based workflow system. This scripting can be used, it can be written in Python, or can be by JavaScript, or it may be by Perl. Okay. And one can also directly specify the XML interface document driving the engine, although that is a pretty low level. So let us see the figure which shows the graphical interface used by most of the workflow systems. Here you can see we are discussing two typical workflow. First workflow is pointing to your load, right? You can say load workflow. Second one is pointing towards your merge workflow. Okay, and they are belongs to one PAN STARRS astronomy data processing area. So what happened? Like you know that in machine learning also, or any implementation, what you are doing, you are inserting the database, right? Or inserting the data sets into the system. So here what happened? First case, let us see. We are starting from here. In starting, what we are providing? We are determining affine slice whole database for the CSV batch. CSV is your comma separated value batch. We are giving a set of CSV files. Okay. Then it is processing by this unit, that is sanity check of the network files, manifest and checksum. Right. Then it will be forwarded to your create register empty load database from complete, right? From the template, right? Here what we are doing, you have a set of load database, right? So you have a load database and these load databases are empty. So once you receive this CSV batch, you have to put this CSV batch into the empty load database, right? And for each CSV file in the batch, what you have to do? You have to do the validate. You have to validate the CSV file and table schema, and you have to convert, or you have to load this CSV file into the table. Okay. This process is repeated for each and every CSV file, and finally, if this process is completed, then we are performing load database or batch validation. Okay, and each and every component, if you here you can detect the load fault. For example, you want to load a particular file and it is showing error, so that can be detected. If any file is not loaded or corrupted, or its checksum is not correct, then what you have to do? You have to again reload the file, or if it is already loaded again in the later phase, you are facing problem, then you can go for the recovery operation. And each and every case you have to report to the admin. Okay, so it is a very large activity, you can say, of the work. But if you go for the merge fault, what we are doing here, we are taking two databases. One is your load database, and another is your code database. In this case, it is empty load database, but in this case, you have to take both load database and code database. And for each partition in the sliced code database, okay, you have to divide the code database into various partitions, and one partition you have to execute, right? So switch out the slice partition to the temp, then union all over the slice and node database will be temp and filter on the partition bound. Switch in the temp to the slice partition. Okay. Post participation you can do, node validation you can do in the merge workflow, right? So the basic difference you can see in these two cases is that one case we are using the load database, another case we are using load and pull database. And what we are doing, we are decomposing the application into small parts in order to execute that, in order to represent in the form of a workflow, and we want to execute it efficiently into number of processes. That is the overall objective of processing. The pen stars astronomy data processing, right? So the functional specifications are directly mapped into the programming model. So there is two visual interfaces you can use here. One visual interface is your Microsoft Trident system. Another is your Taverna, right? So if you see, I will show you the workflow of the Taverna system. In this, what happened? You are creating menus. The menus are nothing but the boxes, right? And menu specifying a particular component. A component may point to an activity or a service or some computation work in a lighter sense, you can say. Like that, you have several components. Right? So what you have to do? Once you create this component, you have to link these components. Based upon the data flow or control flow, you can link this component. That's why it is saying user specifies the workflow logic to the linkage of the boxes. And each box has substantial metadata, right? That can be specified and right. So these, if you see the workflow, you may not understand because these are the complete internal things, right? What are the functions they have used, like MM sequence they have used, RL sequence they have used, HS sequence we have used. So if you go through that workflow system, then only you understand what is the meaning of these sequences. But you see how these menus are connected to each other. So this complete system, you can say it is a workflow. Starting from the project, starting from this system to till the input to the system to the output to the system, all the data and control is flowing through various boxes or various menus, right? Now, the second system, you can say tornado tracking workflow of lead2 is another real life applications, you can say. So if you go for this application, so the need of these applications, if you see, that is the tornado tracking workflow of lead2, it involves data processing services linked to the traditional message passing interface programming, okay, that is MPI programming, parallel weather simulation. Okay, this is pointing to weather oriented, or you can say climate oriented simulation, right? So the concurrency, if you see here, is expressed in workflow in terms of functional parallelism. Distinguish it from the data parallelism. Functional parallelism is separated from the data parallelism. So why you are separating? If you go for the data parallelism especially, you can divide a large data set into small parts. That we have seen in MapReduce programming that is available in Hadoop, right? Hadoop distributed file system. What you are doing? You are given with a large data set, you are dividing the large data set into small parts, right? So once you divide into a large data set into small parts, the degree of data parallelism is determined by the number of available cores. Okay, if you have 100 cores, you divide into 100 cores. If you have 50 cores, you divide into 50 cores, right? And different parts correspond to using a parallel computing technology like MPI or threading concept. You can go for multi-threading. You can go for the MapReduce programming to implement the services. Now let us come to the next discussion, that is called as workflow execution engine. I told you two things. One is workflow specification, what we discussed. Next one is your workflow execution engine. So there are many different workflow systems are there. Workflow does not have strong performance constraint, right? Although it is having precedence constraints, but it does not have strong preference constraint. Then you can see the classification of workflows used to segregate one domain from another domain. Workflow may be available in the metrology and ocean modeling. Workflow may be available in the bioinformatics and biomedical. Workflow may be available in the computer science and artificial intelligence point of view. Workflow may be available in astronomy and neutral science. Okay. So these are examined. How you will examine these workflows? Based upon their size, based upon the resource use, based upon the graph pattern, based upon the data pattern, or based upon the usage also, you can segregate the workflows from one another. Right? So let us see one of the specific workflows that is called as a astronomy workflow, which looks like our directed acyclic graph, where we are using a set of vertices, and these vertices are connected using a set of edges. Okay. So in order to represent these workflows, you can use PHP, which is a very popular for building a mashup, right? Or in order to build these workflows, you can use the pipeline concept, or you can go for the cyclic graphs also. Cyclic graph means the same instruction you are repeating for multiple times, right? Okay, that is before going to that figure, just I would like to tell you, Degman is used in the Condor. Condor is used in our grid computing, especially for the scheduling. So Degman used in the Condor, a sophisticated directed acyclic graph processing engine. This leads to a class of workflow system such as Pegasus, aimed at scheduling the nodes of the directed acyclic graph-based workflows. Or if you go for Karajan, and can easily represent the directed acyclic graph, but it is important to note that most sophisticated workflow systems support hierarchical specifications. Hierarchical specifications means the nodes of the workflow can be either services or it may be a collection of the services. Each and every node may present a component or maybe a group of components, right? Like if you remember that cloud analyst also, while you are deploying a user base may be a single request or it may be a group of user requests. So this is the workflow graph. You can see where the pipeline is present as well as a loop is also present. Okay, pipeline indicates, for example, you have a processor. Now your one processor is executing this work. Once this work is completed, two works can be done simultaneously, right? And the same processor can continue with this work. Here you may require another processor to execute these things, okay? Or you can execute one another in the same processor, okay? And the same processor which is assigned this task can be assigned the same. Like that, you can continue. In this case, also you are following the pipeline. But what happened here? There is a loop concept is there. Until unless a requirement is completed, you have to allocate. Just like I told you, you have ordered several items. One item is prepared, but other items are not prepared. What you are going for a loop until you complete a particular order that consists of a set of items. So I want to tell you a very important concept. Based upon that, the problem may be asked. One concept is there that is called as your communication to computation ratio, which we call as your CCR. For example, you are given with a directed acyclic graph. For example, it is taking 2 units of time, it is taking 1 unit of time, it is taking 5 units of time, it is taking 4 units of time, it is taking 2 units of time, 1 unit of time, like that you can assign. So this is your computation, right? This is your computation and this is your communication. Okay. So in order to find the communication to computation ratio, what you can do? You have to sum all the communications. Communication is this one, this one, this one. Okay. These all edges values you have to add, right? Divided by summation of the values that are present inside the circuit. Right, then you will get a computation to communication ratio, or which we call the CCR. If the value is higher, if CCR value is higher, then data intensive application. For example, if I take this is 100 but this is 2, so in comparison to the computation, communication is more. It indicates it is a data intensive application. If this value is lower, like communication is very less but computation is more, so what you can say, it is a computational intensive application, right? So whether the application is computational intensive or data intensive, that is based upon our CCR, that is communication to computation ratio. Now I'll show you another. If you see this particular figure, what you are seeing here, this figure specifies the interaction between the constituent services or activities of components, right? So here the mechanism for transferring the information between the nodes of the graph. So one, you can see one component's output should be provided with to another component's input to complete the work, right? So one of the important technology, you can say, is the mechanism for transferring the information between the nodes of the graph. So each node reads and writes to disk, okay, because each node may present a group of service also, right? It is not limited to a single service or single task, it may be a group of tasks to disk, and this allows one to treat the execution of each node as an independent job. While you are executing a single node, then you can assume that is completely independent. But once it is computed, it is dependent, because its output is dependent on its output need to be provided to another component's input. In that context, it is dependent. But execution inside a node is treated as independent. Right? In that sense, you can say. So next is your long running job. If you are going for long running jobs, inputting and outputting, okay, needs your substantial data sets, right? Or it may, long running jobs, your communication pattern may be frequently changing, right? If it is a small application, the communication pattern may be a little easier, right, to trace, but it is difficult. So next is your data transfer in a workflow. How you are transferring the data from one component to another component in the messaging system. But if there is a single central control node, it leads to two components. Okay, obviously, wherever you are going for a centralized system, it is a heavy problems in terms of the performance. The performance is highly degraded. So let us spend some time on the scripting the workflow system using Swift. So Swift is a parallel scripting language in which application programs are represented as functions and variables. So you can see in the next diagram, I'll tell you, here you can say particular applications are there, where this application is represented in the form of functions, that is F1, F2, F3, and variables like A1 and A2, right? And structure and array abstractions are used to manipulate the set of files in parallel, right? And Swift has a functional data flow based execution model in which all statements are implicitly parallel. So it is providing that language like MPI is providing or OpenMP is providing, so that all the statements are parallel. A single statement you will write, but that will be given to multiple processors to work. Okay. So parallel looping constructs explicitly specify large scale parallel processing. So this Swift workflow system, if you see, we are giving the script as an input. Okay, this script, this is a parallel programming script. We are giving the input to the Swift. Okay, or we are giving a Swift command, that is a Java application run on any user accessible computer. It may be a workstation, it may be a login server. It compiles and executes the Swift script. Okay, and coordinates with the remote data transfer. So there may be a TeraGrid is also there, or it may be Open Science Grid or cloud may be attached with this. The application of the Swift is maybe you can visualize in the form of bioinformatics domain or in some other domains as well. But in this model. Okay, you can see the application in the terms of bioinformatics. So Swift is a self-contained application with clusters and 3 client nodes, and logs are maintained. Means which script you are executing, how it is executing, which server it is taking, what is their utilization, everything is maintained in the form of logs, right? Okay, so you can see the biometrics of bio application. Just I told you, if you go for that application, so let us assume that you are given with a 100 processor. Okay, you are given with 100 processor. The script can execute 100 invocations. 100 processors means what? Each processor is having one invocation. So we are assuming the 100 processor is having 100 invocation of BLAST search program. What this BLAST search program is doing? It is matching each sequence against the protein of known function in the data. You have an unknown pattern, you are checking the unknown pattern with known pattern. Just like you are giving your biometrics, and while you are giving your biometrics, your finger is an unknown one. Because that is taken and it is compared with the known fingerprint. If there is a match, then I can say this person is known. Otherwise, I will say this person fingerprint is not registered, or I will tell the user to again put the fingerprint. Right? So you can see the structure here. So here we are giving 100 on one protein to the BLAST program. Okay, so that it can execute in 100 processors. So the purpose here is to search for clues to the nature of the unknown proteins. Like you can see here there is 10 parallel BLAST runs to test small sample data sets on the workstation. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, this except this one. So there are 10 parallel BLAST programs are there, BLAST runs are there, which is executed. Okay. So finally, you can see one parallel BLAST may consist of the 10 nodes. So finally, we are executing 100 parallel BLAST, right? This is the example of 10 parallel BLAST runs, but here you can see there are 100 BLAST runs to check the unknown proteins sequence from a NR database, right? The database name is your NR database, right?